Like all these things that were completely out of my control, I found a way to bring it back and blame myself. I watched everyone. I was watching people's body languages. I kind of knew how to act in order to be liked. So everything I used to distract myself with, friends, socializing, got really quiet. And that's when my internal world got so much louder. Like, quote unquote, living the dream. I just started a business that I was actually very passionate about. And yet I was like, why do I still feel like shit inside? I was kind of like, what have they seen in me that I can't see in myself? I thought this was a normal way of living. And I saw a version of myself that did not seem impossible to get to. And it was the first time I was like, I actually believe I could become her.
This is the Future Fitness Lifestyle, the podcast for high achievers who want to take control of their long-term physical and mental well-being. I'm Matt Cooney, and every week we break down the habits, mindset and strategies to build lasting health, energy and strength without sacrificing your career, family or lifestyle. No quick fixes, no fads, just real sustainable results. Because the choices you make today determine the future you step into. Ready to level up? Let's dive in. Roisin O'Keefe, welcome to the Future Fitness Lifestyle podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're more than welcome. We're here today to have a coffee and a chat.
Nice. Looking forward to it.
So today's episode is going to be a bit different because I'm going to interview you. So you are in the hot seat. First off, how are you actually feeling right now?
Pretty good. This is my first time ever being on an interview and on a podcast individually. So
Not the last.
Not the last. No, I'm just preparing myself for the future. Looking forward to it.
Lovely. So to start, if somebody clicked onto this now that has never seen me or you before, who are you? What do you do? How did you get here?
That's a loaded question. So I'm Roisin O'Keefe. Watching this podcast, I'm Eve's sister, so the other half of MC Future Fitness, and I'm a holistic and spiritual embodiment mentor. So essentially, that's a big title. So essentially, my mission is to help women rewrite their story and create a life that they are excited about living and waking up to.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And how did that come about? How did you fall into it? Or I suppose give us a bit of a background before that.
Yeah.
You definitely weren't born that.
No. So I guess my rock bottom or something, or the time where it all kind of changed, was maybe 5 years ago when I moved back from Canada. Again, I always was like the bubbly, fun person. I was always like very positive, very optimistic with life, always everyone else's cheerleader. But for some reason, I always just didn't think, I always knew I was going to live a good life, but I always thought there was something, that I wasn't going to be the best, and that there was always going to have to be this like underlying sense of struggle, I guess. And then...
Is that since you were young? You always kind of thought that, or?
Yeah, I was always very insecure. I got bullied a lot, and just never trusted myself. Never, I was always the quiet friend. Like I was the joker. I'd make people laugh because I thought if I could make people laugh, that would at least they could remember me by the person who made them laugh, who made them smile. I was the quiet one, so I was always the one that kind of very observant. I watched everyone. I was watching people's body languages. I kind of knew how to act in order to be liked.
In different groups, in different situations.
So I was very good at masking this fun, energetic like person, but then very anxious. And I didn't realize how anxious I was until I got over it, and I was like, holy hell. It was 4 years ago when I kind of made the change to like focus on working on my anxiety. And that's because I just moved back from Canada. I'd spent 3.5 years traveling, this incredible time in my life, and COVID was just kind of ending in Ireland. I moved back home. I was 27, no job, no money, living with my mother, and my external world got quiet. So everything I used to distract myself with, friends, socializing, got really quiet. And that's when my internal world got so much louder. And I realized that like, I wanted to make a change.
So that's kind of the first time when, I suppose in a way, you didn't have the distractions of everything else, because it was because of COVID and moving back, not having work. It was like just you.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that scary, or was that like a conscious choice to do it, or?
I guess since when I traveled, I learned, because I didn't know what anxiety was. Again, growing up in Ireland, nobody talked about mental health. Nobody talked about that voice in your head. I'm also undiagnosed ADHD, so I constantly had a voice in my head, and I thought I was crazy, so I didn't tell anybody.
Yeah.
And I didn't assume anybody else had a voice in their head because, again, it wasn't talked about. And it wasn't until I started traveling and meeting people from other walks of life, and they were openly talking about anxiety and like the symptoms and all of this. And I would listen and I was like, holy shit, I think that sounds so like what's going on in my head.
I think Canada and America are very much more like way ahead of Ireland in that stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they were just more open about talking about
Mm.
their feelings or what's going on in their head.
You're grand. Don't worry about it.
So then I kind of realized, okay, I'm not crazy, and there's other people that have this thing. So again, there was a lot of shame around it. So I was looking into what anxiety was. I think then, yeah, towards the end of my time in Canada, because it was COVID, there was free counseling sessions. This is kind of what really spurred on me focusing on my own anxiety. But there was free counseling sessions, and I always wanted to go to a counselor. I always thought talking to somebody would be amazing, but never had the money for it. And it was always like the bottom of the list of priorities, especially when you're traveling.
Literally talk yourself out of talking to somebody.
Yeah, when you're traveling, you're in that mode. That's the bottom of the list.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this was free. So I was like, amazing. I'll go to this free counselor session. I went with an open mind just to see what my options were for dealing with anxiety. So the first session was amazing. It was a therapy session. I felt heard. It was so nice to just get a lot off my chest that I hadn't opened up to anybody about before. And then he was like, come back for another session. And the second session was awful. It was a different guy. It was a psychotherapist, I think. Didn't look me in the eye. There was no personal connection. He made me feel so little in the room. He just had a clipboard of multiple choice questions. And I made it very clear that I didn't want to be medicated. That was another reason why I kind of stayed away from it. He didn't listen at all. He gave me a 3-month prescription for antidepressants. And I was like, how long do you want me to be on them? He was like, 3 years and we'll wean you off. And because I went in with an open mind, I left furious. And that's kind of what turned me to start doing my own research into, because I was always natural, as in like, I always, if I got a headache, I would try and naturally cure it before going to medicine. So that kind of started me to be like, right, okay, I've got really bad anxiety. What natural ways can I kind of help this? And then when I ended up going home, I had this time with nothing to do where I was like, okay, this is a moment where I can actually focus on this and use myself as a little experiment, and work on fixing or healing this anxiety that I had.
Yeah. And what did you then end up doing during that time? Like how did you start focusing on books, or what did you kind of do to change or start that process?
I started with herbs. Because again, I loved herbs. So I was like researching herbs that would help with anxiety, help with calming the mind, because I used to wake up, and this is the thing, like I thought this was normal. I thought this was a normal way of living. So I would wake up every morning and it would feel like somebody was standing on my chest. And from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to sleep, I had 101,000 thoughts going on in my head, and they were all worries and they were all negative self-talk. I was worrying about everything. Like if I went on a night out, before I go on the night out, I'd be overanalyzing all the conversations I could possibly have and how they could possibly go, and what would people think of me if I said a certain thing. And after the night out, I would be going back and overanalyzing every conversation I had with people. I was like, did they pick up on that body language? Or did they think that I meant this when I did that? It was a constant.
Your mind is just on overdrive.
Yeah, constantly. Everything. A car broke down. Was probably why was I? This is going to delay my whole day, and I would beat myself up. Like all these things that were completely out of my control, I found a way to bring it back and blame myself. And so that was one thing. And again, because my distractions were taken away from me, like socializing and talking to people, that was all I could focus on, was that inner narrative and those thoughts. So my main thing was trying to calm those, trying to start each day, quietening them a little bit so that it would have a ripple effect throughout my day and it wouldn't get as chaotic.
Yeah. And what helped you the most to change, to, I suppose, quieten those thoughts? Because I know a lot of people have them, and it's like, I think we all have them to a certain degree, but like you said, it's kind of like, for some people, yeah, you're a million thoughts. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, so how did you start to kind of quieten your mind essentially?
Um, Meditation was a huge thing for me. Again, it was something I could never, I tried to get into because, again, you hear all these things like meditation's amazing. And I tried doing it many times and I was like, they're all lying because I couldn't do it. I couldn't quieten the mind. But my herbs helped me quieten my mind. And I remember the first time, this was kind of a moment where the first time I went to meditate, and it was the first time I had I did a higher self meditation. So I was sitting out in the garden at home, and I did this meditation. And for the first time, you visualize your higher self.
Mm.
And I saw a version of myself that did not seem impossible to get to. And it was the first time where I was like, I actually believe I could become her.
Mm.
I remember I was streaming tears of joy when that came out. And I remember coming into my mother and I was like, oh my God, Mom, I just had the most incredible meditation. And Ma'am, she was like, here we go. What's this? And it was there when I was like, now I get it, what people mean, because seeing that vision of myself, I was like, I actually think if I can put the work in, if I can focus on myself, I can make that version of myself happen. And so I did a lot more meditation, a lot more just kind of pushing myself. But I think I had you and I had Eve you were always very inspiring to me, your lifestyle. And I was kind of doing all the other things like my fitness, my health and my physical fitness was great. Yeah. And then I was like, I'll turn this herbal business into an actual business. And that's when, again, all this imposter syndrome, perfectionism, like I delayed the process of opening the business because everything had to be perfect, which is
So
just me
probably it
self-sabotaging.
kind of got better, and then you went to do this new thing of business, and then it like all came back
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I felt like I kind of built a little bit of belief in myself.
Yeah.
And I was like,
And then you
yeah,
stepped outside. Yeah.
because I saw the benefits these herbs were having on me. So I was like, okay, if they're helping me, they'll definitely help others. And then as soon as I launched the business, I was like, I was waiting for that one review off someone to be like, you're a fraud. And I was going to be like, that would shut it all down.
Yeah.
But I was getting trickles of like positive feedback about people saying, oh my God, I really got benefits from this. And I would get a high off those, but then it'd come crashing down.
Because you're always waiting for the.
Yeah. Constantly waiting for it.
I think so many people have that with anything. It's like, and it stops you, like you said, it actually stopped you from launching it, then probably actually advertising it and going, having that full. It's weird. You believe in it, but then you're also there's that like that little thing that it's kind of like if you've ever wrote a post and you just cannot press the button.
Yeah.
You do all the work, everything to get there. It's like just put the phone back in the pocket.
Yeah. Just no trust in myself.
Yeah.
No trust and no belief. And I think that was a moment where I was like, why is this not working for me? I was like, I'm doing like my external world, physical health and fitness, amazing. I had a great group of friends. I had amazing family around me. I had a bank of incredible life experiences collected that was like, quote unquote, living the dream. I just started a business that I was actually very passionate about. And yet I was like, why do I still feel like shit inside? Like, what? This doesn't make sense. I'm doing all the things that they say to do to quote unquote be happy. And I'm very far from it inside.
And what was missing?
Just, I think, believing in myself. I think another thing, again, because I was a very observant person, I picked up on a lot of things. And my time in Canada, I didn't have the best with friendship relationships kind of growing up and in like teenage years. But then when I went to Canada, I met so many incredible people, like insane people, that I was kind of like, what are they seeing in me that I can't see in myself?
Yeah.
I was like, it doesn't make sense because these people, I always thought that I would, because I moved a lot in Canada, which was one, because I wanted to experience and see as much as I could, but also there was an underlying thing of, I'm going to leave before these people get sick of me. So then I could have an excuse. But then these people would stay in contact. And I was like, why? How are so
Why
many
can't I
people,
believe it?
yeah, seeing this in me and I can't fathom it, or I'd get a glimpse of it and then I'd tear myself down.
It's hard because it keeps coming. It's like a never constantly moving goalposts because it's like, it doesn't matter what you achieve because you will be like, either something bad is going to happen. Do you know? It's like you could never fully embrace anything because
it's actually probably like not being present, because you're always thinking of the past or the future, being like,
Yeah.
it's great now, but someone's gonna throw a bomb at me now in a minute, you know? So you never fully get to actually embrace anything you do. Or it's like, Irish people do this a lot as well. I'm definitely guilty. It's like, if someone give me a compliment, or if you said something positive about yourself, it then proceeds with, but I'm good at soccer, but I'm not that good.
Yeah.
But he's better. You know, you can't just actually say, I'm good. I'm proud of myself for that.
Yeah, that's like, because many of us have low self-worth. Like, that's it. Like, when, especially Irish people, you get a compliment. You compliment a girl, oh, your hair is gorgeous. Oh, I swear it only took me 5 minutes. Because we have to justify why we don't spend too much time on ourselves. Because too much time on yourself was selfish. Or you're full of yourself. All these Irish kind of, it's very Irish, but it's around the world as well. But like, yeah, you can't even take a compliment. You have to do, like, oh, your top's nice. This, I swear I only paid €5 for it. I didn't spend any more money on myself, because that would be selfish, you know?
And that kind of leads me into the next question / experience, which I thought was really interesting. And it kind of goes on from this, is your photo shoot experiences. I suppose the difference in them.
Yeah.
So do you want to kind of explain that? Because you were saying you started to do things that were, I suppose, outside of your comfort zone. One of them was probably taking on the physical challenge of a photo shoot, but obviously you put the voice note into the group after one of the years. So yeah, do you want to kind of talk through that
That's
process
actually,
the last couple of years even?
That's actually was very good, because the first photo shoot, I was always, like, I was there for the very first photo shoot that you did,
Literally
but I was always
9
behind
years
the
ago.
scenes. Yeah.
Yes.
I was the one behind the scenes, and I always swore I would never be in front of the camera. I was like, not, that's not me. I couldn't do it. And then luckily I went to Canada and I escaped the next couple of ones. And then when I came back, I remember the first one I think it was the biggest one you had. And I wasn't in it, but I was back from Canada, and I remember helping you out. And I remember being there with 20, I think, the first.
Was it the one after COVID?
There was 20 something, like 18 women. And
yes, because the first one we did, there was 13 people. I think there was only 3 women, 10 guys. And then one of our biggest ones was, I think, 27 people. And I think it was like 20 women, 7 guys, or something like that.
Yeah. And I remember showing up and seeing all these women from like all different ages. And I was like, the energy in the room, like the energy in train was crazy. Like, I had like goosebumps the whole day, because you see people so nervous, and then you see them walk away from the camera, and the confidence and the excitement in it. And I remember I turned, I think it was Cuddy or something, and I turned and I was like, I want to feel what that feels like. It's not even, I just want to know how that feels. Like, that feeling, I want to have that feeling. And so I remember telling you that night over a couple of drinks, I'll do it next year.
Yeah, you signed the contract there and then.
But the first photo shoot, because it was end of COVID, and because I had so much time to focus on my physical health and stuff, and I loved it. I loved the whole process. I was so proud of myself. And I remember showing up on the day, and it was a completely different story. Like, I was so proud of my process and how much work I'd put in, and the results that I had. But on the day, I didn't want to look at myself. I didn't want any pictures taken. Only Kes could take photos of me. I didn't want behind the scenes. I didn't want anything. All I did was compare myself to every other girl that showed up. Every time I caught myself in the mirror, it was something negative. And I was like, why does this doesn't make sense? Because I'd done the work. I was so proud. I had I physically had the evidence.
Yeah.
But inside, I couldn't look at my reflection.
It's like the same story repeating itself from the business.
And that's why I was like, I could not, like, it just wasn't making sense. And I was like, how can I tell everybody else? Because that's the thing, like, everyone else, I'm like their biggest cheerleader. And I was like, it's just not adding up. And then the second photo shoot, because then I moved to Budapest, and I think I got to a point where I was like, right, Ro, I moved to Budapest. I don't know what took me there. I got a gut feeling to be in Budapest. I lived there for a year and a half with the sole purpose. It was the first time me moving abroad on my own, living alone, with the sole purpose to fall in love with myself, to better the relationship I had with myself. And that was the toughest, but most transformative years I had. And the photo shoot, because then it came around to the second photo shoot, and physically there was not much difference between my first photo shoot and my second photo shoot.
Yeah.
Mentally, I was a whole different person. Like I went into that photo shoot and it didn't matter the work that I put in. I was proud of myself from the second I went in that door. My self-talk completely changed. Which is a huge thing.
I remember you saying you put like time and effort into the day, like before, because I think were you saying the first year you didn't even like get your hair done or anything, was it, or your tan, something, a few things you didn't even put any, like it was like you wouldn't let yourself.
Yes, low self-worth. I was like, I've done all this work, but I still didn't believe that I was worthy of spending what, €80 on hair and your makeup and all of this. I just bought some outfits for it. I couldn't fathom that I was worthy of that. And the second year I did my own hair and makeup again, but I actually gave myself time.
Yeah.
Because again, the first year it was like you got like an hour. Gave myself an hour window. So I didn't feel, and that's what I used to do on nights out and everything. It was, you only get an hour to get ready because it's not worth spending so much time on yourself. Again, this whole belief that time spent on yourself was selfish. And yeah, the second year was a completely different story. I showed up so differently. My inner narrative was completely different. I was so happy with how I looked. I wasn't comparing myself to anybody else. Yeah, it was just different. And then the third one, it's just, I feel like the first was about my physical body. The second was my mindset completely changed. The third one then was just, I say it was for my soul. It was kind of because I had such a great mindset now and the physical side of things, it was kind of just about pushing myself to see what I could be capable of.
Yeah. And I think your relationship with food kind of changed during those times as well, didn't it? Like kind of, that's like, because I always say a relationship with food is essentially a relationship with yourself. When you like, it's like the food is the top layer, but actually that always comes back to your thoughts and feelings about yourself. So it's like, even you, if I'm right, was the first one you kind of struggled with your food relationship after it, and then the second one was completely different, was that?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The first one, it was that whole, after the photo shoot, that guilt of like, oh my God, one wrong move now and I'm going to undo all this hard work that I've done. So food became this, like, I felt really guilty around food. I always had good education around food because both my parents, they were on the healthier side of like we had a lot of variety and stuff. So I knew what was the healthier options and stuff. But then my relationship with food, again, growing up, we don't talk about feelings, especially being Irish. Nobody talks about feelings. Being undiagnosed ADHD, I think a lot of the times I hadn't a clue what was going on in my system or how I was feeling. And so food was something that I could control. That made me feel good for a certain amount of time. And I think that's why a lot of people use food as like an emotional crutch.
Like a coping mechanism for...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also it avoided me actually talking about my feelings.
Yeah.
And that's something
literally you eat your feelings.
Yeah. And I think I remember that on the first photo shoot. I think it was the first photo shoot. Yeah. I remember it was a big night out at home. And everyone was out and I was seeing all the Snapchats and I was sitting in bed. I was sitting in bed watching Netflix and I've seen all the Snapchats of everyone out having a great night. And I started to feel like, FOMO, fear of missing out. And then I could feel all this and I was like, I didn't want to deal with these feelings. So I remember going down to the kitchen and I went and I got snacks and I brought the snacks down to the room and I stopped and I was like, what are you doing, Ro? Yeah. And that was the first time where I kind of stopped and I was like, let's actually talk about why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And something I tell even my clients is like, if you can think about when you get that trigger to like binge eat, it's because you're avoiding a feeling of some form. But if you could imagine a little child coming up to you who's confused or sad or feeling something and they want your comfort and you just throw food at them. Yeah. Do you know? You're like, just eat this. Like, you wouldn't do that to a little child. And that was a realization I had in that moment. I was like, why am I just stuffing food that I'm probably not tasting? I'm not enjoying it. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel so guilty and I'm probably going to restrict myself. Why am I keeping this pattern going? And so I treated myself like a little child. I was like, right, why are you feeling sad? Because you're missing out. Boom. Yeah. Okay, but why are you missing out? You're doing a photo shoot, which you're going to be really proud of, And then I was like, yeah, and I talked myself out of it and I felt so much better. And I still had like a little snack,
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that snack, and it came from a place
Mm.
of comfort rather than a place of shame or guilt.
Yeah.
And then I woke up the next morning and I remember having this huge sense of, I'm so proud how I dealt with that situation.
Mm.
And then that was kind of building on my relationship with food there. It was like, again, looking at it from a place of food is another relationship we have in our life, and we have to treat it like any relationship we have in your life. There has to be respect, trust, presence. You know, you have to be sitting and enjoying your food and just having a lot more appreciation for the food. And that's completely changed my relationship with food. I see it like I love food, and I'll never be in a restrictive place. But again, it was, again, working out, and that when I first started, it was coming from a place of punishment.
Yeah. That's what I
You
was going
know?
to say. A lot of it's like guilt and shame.
Yeah.
It's like that place drives, because even after the first photo shoot, probably for you as well, like that, you probably felt so shamed because of that day. Because it's like you put in all this work, you feel great, and then all of a sudden you kind of ruined it for yourself on the day. You
Yeah.
self-sabotage yourself, and then the coping mechanism with that afterwards is probably the food, you know, too, because again you're feeling guilty or shamed, and then you say overconsume or you binge, whatever it is, and then it's like the same cycle goes again. You feel guilty for doing that,
Yeah.
and then it's like the shame of, sometimes that's why a lot of people, even when they secret eat, because it's like, yes, they feel guilty, but then they also feel shameful to even tell somebody, you
Yeah.
know. So it's like that just keeps replaying, and
Yeah.
then it's like the punishment, the training or the good food is not because you want to. It's like punishment for what you did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's then it just becomes this never-ending cycle.
It's all about the energy behind it, because that's it. But even when you're eating from a place of shame, because even when I would treat myself at the weekends and go and get a pastry or something, I was always even ashamed of that.
Yeah.
And when you eat from a place of shame as well, you usually eat faster because you want to get rid of whatever it is, because you're ashamed about it. There's guilt there, so you eat faster. You're not actually tasting it. You're not enjoying it. It's going to digest not well in your system, and you'll probably eat way more of it because you're not allowing yourself to slow down and process it. But then when you eat from a place of enjoyment, it's a whole different thing, and it's a better experience.
It's so interesting. It's like you can do the exact same behaviors, but it's the thoughts and feelings behind them that make the difference.
Yeah.
And I always explain that to people, like, because even if yesterday, the day before, someone was like saying nearly like they felt guilty about they're on holidays and they're drinking and eating, whatever. And I was like, if you actually reflect on it, it's like, you probably enjoyed the week. You're entitled to, everybody should be able to go on holidays, to drink, eat, enjoy all that stuff. So there actually shouldn't be any guilt or shame attached to it, you know?
Yeah.
It's actually part of, because it's like guilt is associated with wrong, which is associated with then, okay, if I do X, Y, or Z, this is wrong.
Yeah.
And when you do that, especially even with your fitness, your health, it's like you start to unconsciously tell yourselves that, like, oh, I can't enjoy these things if I want to be fit and healthy.
Yeah.
And then eventually you're going to be like, but I want them in my life. You know, like I want to be able to go out for food. I want to be able to have a drink, socialize.
Yeah.
But then it's like, that's where sometimes you'll even sabotage yourself, because you're like, shit, I don't want to be in shape, because being in shape in my head is like eating foods you hate out of Tupperware and just training the whole time versus, so it creates this like negative loop and thought process, you know?
Yeah.
So and then it's like people get frustrated because they're like, I'm never getting to where I want to go. It's like, I want to be in this shape, but realistically, they forget that like there's actually negative things tied to that, you know?
Yeah.
So and that's where you said originally, like the first sentence, you were like, helping people rewrite their story.
Yeah.
And is that where your purpose and mission came from?
Yeah, and that's the whole thing there where you were saying, it's like so many different perspectives. And this is what fascinates me. Like the human mind and the human body fascinates me. Like I think we are all so powerful, and we have no idea how powerful we are because we've been conditioned to think certain ways. And this is why I'm so passionate about the work I do now, is because I've seen firsthand, I've been my own experiment, and I have changed, like, my internal world has completely changed. And I did this again with no fancy equipment, with no crazy financial investment. I invested time in myself, and through things that we already have access to right here in our human body, I was able to completely change my life. And that's why my mission is to show as many people as possible that they have the power to rewrite their stories, to work on their beliefs, and regulate their nervous system and change your life without having all this external material stuff that society tells you need in order to create this happy lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think the big thing for you is you said like external versus internal. It's like for you, like externally looking at you, you wouldn't have really, like people would never say there's anything wrong with you. So it's like, and a lot of people do this because it's like you're going around, it's like you're being in two different bodies or something, because it's like in the external, everything's actually fine, you know, but it's like this internal, this person you are in, not in private, I suppose, is not in bits, but you know, not the same person at all, you know. So it's actually, it's like suffering in silence. And then you can live your daily life, you're still going to work, you're still, you know, you're this happy, bubbly person externally, but internally you're a mess, you know, for lack of a better term, which honestly I think a lot of people will relate to that.
But that's the thing. I think, if you'd ask any of my friends growing up, or if you ask, like, even when I used to when I spoke about my story or talk about anxiety, people are like, you anxious? What? No. It's like, because I traveled on my own. I moved to Canada on my own. I was doing these things that were deemed, they were scary. It was one of the most terrifying things. But like these brave things, you know, these out there kind of things where, they were brave, but I was also running from something. And I was hoping that, I don't know, I would find some answers along the way. But I also had underlying beliefs that I was like, okay, I understand. Yes, I'm not the greatest person and I'm all this. And I had this self-doubt, but I also wanted to experience as much as I could in life. So I always had that drive. So I always pushed myself to do these things because I wanted to experience them. I didn't want to live a life without these experiences. But every single one of those experiences and those memories is tarnished with this constant inner narrative of putting myself down.
That's so interesting because you have all these experiences and everything, but it's like you said, you never fully 100%
wasn't fully present at all. And even in those experiences with these amazing people, with these friends, there was a constant narrative in my head being like, turn this way, maybe don't laugh, or can you talk to in this conversation? Like if an intellectual conversation came up and I was like, oh God, I can't talk on this, I'd be so much in my head worried about having something to say that I'm not actually listening to the conversation at all. Do you know?
That's why I said that to somebody, maybe Eve or something. I'm like, when there's a conversation going on, I'm like, no wonder you're mentally drained, is because you're actually thinking about what you're saying, what the other person's going to say, what this person's going to react. So you're doing four things at once. For every, say someone who's just having one thought about like what to speak, is like you're having four. So you're doing the four. So I'm like, no wonder you're absolutely zapped. It's it's such one of those things. And for a lot of people, you're just not really, like you said, you're not aware that these exist, you know, that it just becomes your normal to feel like that, to wake up every day like that, have every situation in your life be dictated by that, you know. And I think a lot of people are so, this is where the whole material stuff, it's like a lot of us feel like if we get X, we will be happy. So it's like, once I get a house, I'll be happy, or once I'm married, once I have kids, and then it's like, or even you get to an income bracket or whatever it is, but then you get there and then you're lost. It's like half the time you feel the exact same or worse. And then it's like, what do I need to do or achieve or get to feel the way I think I should feel? You know? But again, it's more what's going on internally.
But that's, firstly, people don't know how we feel. We've never fully allowed ourselves to fully feel our feelings. You know, growing up, you're not allowed to be too angry. You're not allowed to be too sad. You can't even be too happy, because if you're too happy, then you're going to make somebody else feel bad. So we never fully allowed ourselves to feel. So we actually have no idea how we should be feeling or what. Or somebody's like, if you get a promotion, that means that's a good thing. So the way I feel after a promotion, this must be happiness, even though you've no idea what it feels like. But there was something else I wanted to say there. The thing is, I think we all grow up with this judgment of ourselves that we build from how we are treated, and we create this bubble, and usually it's a negative bubble. So we create this version of ourselves that we're not that happy with. And so the idea of getting to know this person isn't fun. And so humans, we will find all the external things to try and make our lives better, because that's a lot easier to find them and blame them for it not working than to actually look at ourselves. Because that's the scariest thing, is to actually look at yourself, especially when you've created this negative little judgment. Because that was for me, I was terrified to be alone with myself, to spend time with this person, because I had created this negative, not nice person.
I remember that there's a study done before where it was like people would rather get electric shocks put through them than spend 10 minutes alone with themselves.
Yeah.
It was like 50 or 60% or something of people chose the electric shock over sitting with their own brain for 15 minutes or something like that. And what do you think people get wrong about, I suppose, that the work you do, or self-care, looking after putting themselves first?
I think a lot of people think that it's external, that you're going to get it in an external way by, I don't know, social media has a really nice way of making self-care look fluffy and soft. But it's really about, it comes out, treat yourself like a human. Like, if I was to say to you, pick somebody that you love the most in this world, you better say my sister. Okay. And if I said to you, I want you to swap bodies with her for the next 6 months, you're in her body for the next 6 months. How would you take care of her? You know, you'd feed her right. You'd exercise. You'd probably talk nicely to her in your head. If she was tired, you'd probably let her rest. You know, when you saw her reflection, you'd be seeing more than just how she looks, because you see the person she is. You know, you'd be doing all this. She would have a lovely mind. You'd be all this. Whereas as humans, we can be so compassionate for everybody else. Like, it's second nature to us to be compassionate for everyone else. But then the thought of being self-compassionate, people don't even know how to do that. Like, I've had clients that are like, how do you practice self-compassion? And I'm like, it's literally compassion for others. Just put
What
it
you
on
do
yourself.
for others, just do it.
It seems like that seems so impossible. And there's no judgment, because that's so valid, because I used to be there. I was like, how the hell am I meant to be compassionate towards myself? And that's the main thing. If you can zoom out every time you feel yourself going into this pit of negativity or whatever, zoom out and just put somebody else in that shoe and be like, would you treat that person like that? Because you wouldn't. And starting there is like a really good way of.
I think you said this before as well, that people probably get mixed up, is like self-compassion sounds like it's like letting yourself off, or not just going easy on yourself.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know,
yeah.
where it's not really. Like, I remember you saying before, like, you know, having discipline is actually a form of self-care, or it's actually self-compassion. Do you know?
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, yeah, like self-compassion looks at like, oh yeah, it's don't worry about it, go easy on yourself. Do you know, don't worry. But I think it's more, it's not that at all.
No, because it's when you trust yourself, when you believe in yourself, when you believe in yourself that you can do stuff, you're going to push yourself to do those things. But the self-compassion is doing the scary things, pushing yourself and taking the action. But then also, when you do it, having that compassion that if it doesn't go right, that's okay. At least you did the thing. And if it did go right, amazing. Now let's celebrate it. Because that's another thing. We're always like, life is mountains. Constantly, you get to one mountain and you realize you're at the bottom of the other. And most people run up that mountain and exhaust themselves, and they miss everything along the way. They miss the waterfall, beautiful views along the way. And that's why I think it's so important when you do this work. It's about, like, you go back and you heal like a version of yourself, and you see that in the internal world. But then you forget to appreciate all the little steps you're taking now, like the version of you now. A lot of us won't appreciate that because we're running again to get to X. And then in like 10 years time, you'll be like, damn it, me at 35, I should have really stopped and appreciated all the hard work he was putting in, you know?
It's so true though. That's why everybody does that with, like, in photo shoot shape or being lean as well. Like, nobody ever fully appreciates it, because you always look back at pictures and be like, Jesus, I was really lean then, you know, but you never feel it at the time, because you never actually, then it's just the next thing you're trying to, like, you know, get to that next level.
Yeah.
So it's funny, because I even catch myself doing it. You look back and I'm like, whoa, I was really lean back then, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a thing, but like that, it's being able to slow down and actually be present with yourself, you know, and that's sort of like the work you were saying, some of that with the anxiousness and all that, it's like, it's avoiding the present a lot of the time, because essentially someone said was like anxiety is always in the future or the past. So you're thinking about something that happened, trying to replay it in your head, or you're predicting something that hasn't even happened in the future.
Yeah.
So it's never actually in this moment right now. So it's like if you can always bring yourself back to the present, you won't feel anxious, you know.
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
I don't have it figured out yet. So last question I wanted to ask is if you had 3 bits of advice to give somebody in a similar position than you were. Okay, these can be like maybe their habits, mantras, routines. What would you say?
I think firstly, you have to spend time with yourself. Like switch out one of the nights with Netflix to just sitting, and it's as simple as that. It's sitting with yourself in front of a mirror. And it's going to be uncomfortable. You are going to find every excuse not to do it. If you're going to get to the evening and you're going to be like, oh, I don't have the energy, I'll just sit and doom scroll or watch something mindlessly. But it takes the same energy for you to sit on a yoga mat in front of yourself than it does to sit on a couch and doom scroll. And I've never once regretted. And there was so much resistance when I started doing this work, but I've never once regretted sitting on the yoga mat. But it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be weird. It's going to be embarrassing. But what I tell people is, like, imagine if you got your bully, somebody who's been at you your whole life, calling you names and all this, and I told you to sit in a room with them. It would be uncomfortable. It would be embarrassing. You wouldn't want to do it at the start. You wouldn't want to talk to them. You wouldn't want to look at them. We're all our own bullies. And so at the start, it is going to be uncomfortable. But if you realize you're not leaving this table until you befriend that person, that bully, eventually you realize that it's not a bully and it's a scared little child that just needs comforting and love.
It's like those movies, you know, when the bully and the person end up becoming best friends.
Yeah, because the bully is not actually trying to hurt someone. It's a wall.
It's a reflection on them.
Yeah.
That's like those movies. It's like they end up they're like, oh, we're actually like the same people. But it's just, you were just beating me up for it.
So that's one thing, is put 20 minutes, 30 minutes aside each week to just sit with yourself and start from the basics. Get to know yourself like you'd build any relationship. And you'll eventually realize that you actually really do like yourself and you're fascinating and there's so much to you. Like, that's one thing I love. Every day I'm learning something completely different about myself and it's so fascinating. And I'm like, wow. Secondly, I think about fear. I think fear is what stops a lot of us from doing things. It's actually the biggest regret on people's deathbed is I didn't have the courage to be true to myself, and I lived a life for others. And quote I heard a while ago about courage is, fear is just courage in disguise. So it's just the way we look at fear. Like, fear stops us, but behind everything that we fear, whether it's big or small, or if it goes right or if it goes wrong, you gain courage. And that's kind of what every time I get something that's scary now, I'm like, okay, this is scary, but if it's scary, that means there's meaning behind it and that there's something there that's driving you towards it. And if you can see that, okay, it's scary, there's fear here, but I'm going to gain courage if I get to the other side of that. And each time you gain courage, you get a deeper understanding of who you are. I don't want that to be my regret, and I don't want that to be anybody's regret at their deathbed. Because then another thing is, when you are true to yourself and when you show up as who you are and do the things that you want to do, again, people think it's selfish, but I think it's the opposite, because when you can be yourself, then you're showing everyone else around you that it's okay for them to be themselves, that they don't have to fit into this box. And it's like that ripple effect of passing it on to more people to be authentic and to be themselves. So it's actually kind of selfish if you don't be yourself, you know?
Yeah.
Because then you're just cookie cutting and you're telling everyone else that they have to fit into this box.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And someone said, I think it was JP, a couple of weeks ago, yeah, he was like, ask for forgiveness, not permission. So what he meant was like, don't ask for permission to do these things. A lot of people are waiting forever they think they need permission. Instead, just do it. And if it goes wrong, you're better to say sorry for doing it and then regret not trying, essentially. That's number 2, is essentially reframing fear. First one is spend time with yourself. Yeah. Number 2 is reframing fear. What would be the third?
I think a bit like perspective shifts are something that changes everything. I think if you can look at a situation if there's something stopping you from doing it, let's say this is really scary. When you have just the one perspective on a thing, it holds so much weight.
Yeah.
You know, it has so much weight and it's so scary. But if you can just try and look at it from other perspectives. You don't necessarily have to believe the other perspectives, but as soon as you change and open up perspectives, that weight gets lifted off that scary thing or whatever it is. And all of a sudden your mind is now like, okay, there's a few other options here. So it doesn't have as much weight, and it makes it easier to kind of work towards. And I think as well, like switching, like mindset shifts on words and stuff, like hard. Everyone says that life is hard. Things are hard. You choose your hard. But hard has this, again, it has such a heavy weight. When something is hard, we automatically assume it's going to be really difficult, and we automatically kind of deem ourselves failing it. You know, we already like, oh God, it's so hard. And that puts us into overwhelm, and it stops us from like getting creative and problem solving.
Yeah.
But when you can change, it's hard to, it's challenging. All of a sudden now you're like, challenge. Now I kind of, as humans, we want to challenge ourselves. And so this hard thing, it has the same difficulty, but now there's more curiosity. You can problem solve. You can just change the way you look at it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I was like, whenever I even catch myself, I'm like, oh God, this is so hard. I'm like, no, it's a challenge, and I accept this challenge. So yeah, I think just perspective shifts and being able to zoom out is so important.
It's kind of like the language you use, because a lot of us don't even realize the words that we're saying, and like you said, the meaning. It's funny because that definitely related to me. It's like some things are meant to be hard, and it's like hard and heavy, but it's like, what if they could actually be easy and light? And it's like, even in your own mind, when we say hard and heavy, like you would feel that. If I say easy and light, it's like, oh yeah, like imagine something's easy and light. You know what that kind of feels like. But so it's like, for a lot of us, why can't something be easy and light? It's just you've attached that, okay, in order to record this podcast, it's going to be hard. But what if it was easy? You know? So it's like reframing.
And that's it. Yeah, the intention behind everything as well. Because the thing is, this could be hard for you. It's easy for somebody else. So why can't it be easy for you? Because I think that's a great thing about even social media, and like social media has its negatives, but it also has a positive, because it's allowed us to see so many people around the world living so many different lives and having so many different normals and different mindsets, that you're like, if somebody can think like that, then why can't I think like that?
Well, that's why travel, I think, is so beneficial as well.
Yeah.
It's like seeing different cultures and things, and it actually brings up, even in my head, because I think I have that business has to be hard. And I remember meeting people somewhere in like either Dubai or Marbella here, and it's like talking to somebody, he's like, oh yeah, I have like 2 multi-7-figure companies, and he's like going off playing golf. And I was just like, just staring at him, and like, I have one business and it's really hard, you know? And then it's like, but then that's the perspective shift, and he's just like putting his clubs into the car, and he's like, oh yeah, it doesn't have to, maybe it's not hard, you know, for everyone. And again, it's just shifting your perspective, because we just carry those beliefs around anything, you know?
But it's that hustle culture. And it's also because we've been conditioned to believe that the more you work, the more you're worth. And so hard work and being busy is this badge of honor that we wear. And that's what I was stuck in, that whole thing. And this year I really took down that hustle culture and learned to actually take more breaks and realize slowing down a little bit. And I've done so much more in the last 3 months. By just slowing down and being so much more creative and having so much more of a flow about me, that I'm like, wow, it really is, again, just changing your words. And you might not see a result straight away, but you stick to it for a bit, and you start just seeing your reality shift a little. And I think that's fascinating, that we have the capability of doing that by just working on our beliefs.
So it's powerful in that, knowing that. So we had the 3. What were the 3 again? Spending time with yourself, the language we use, being careful, and reframing fear. I think that's huge. I want to thank you for reframing fear and joining me today, because this is never easy. But it was really, really enjoyable, and I think there's so much value to be taken, and a lot of people, I think, can relate to almost everything you've said. So where can people find out more about you?
So Instagram, it's Grow with Roro. And then my website and how you can work with me and all that is linked to that. And I have a podcast that's not this. Called Sunshine and Rosie on Spotify. That's another scary thing I did this year.
Yeah. See, yeah, that happened from slowing down.
Yeah, see?
So I'll
Yeah.
leave links to all them in the show notes. And yeah, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you all in the next one.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Future Fitness Lifestyle. If you found value in today's conversation, do me a favor, leave a review, share it with a friend, or tag me on social media. Every share and review allows us to reach more people and bring you even more great content. Stay tuned for weekly episodes packed with insights to help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset. And if you're ready to take things to the next level and join the MC Future Fitness community, click the link in the description, fill in the application, and let's get started. Thanks for tuning in.